been following with my recent guides, today's one will be no different as we're taking a look at how I did the Vorkath Grandmaster time, which for those who are unaware, it is a sub 1 minute and 45-second kill. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get into this guide. Alrighty, I have the recording pulled up here. Now I should probably talk about how this is actually done. There are two ways technically, or at least two big ideas in order to get a sub 145. The first one is you do a standard farming kill and just go really fast and get a sub 145, which is definitely possible. I've seen some farming kills in the 130s, although these I don't believe are happening every single kill, but there's definitely a little bit of wiggle room there. If you're an avid Vorkath farmer, you could go that route, but the route that I went and most other people went is to do a Zamorghial skip. And how this works, if I just scrub back a little bit here, essentially what you're doing is you're getting Vorkath to phase, I believe this is phase 3 because that's phase 1 HP, that's phase 2 HP, and all these markers is when Vorkath will turn and do like a dragon breath on Zamorghial himself, and then once he does the second one, that's when he'll eventually go up and do the flight, and that's when Zamorghial is attackable. And essentially what we're trying to do here is do all of Zamorghial's HP in one go. Essentially it's a 500k damage Zerk, because what triggers the fight to end is Zamorghial's death, not Vorkath's. Now for those of you who have farmed out a bit of normal mode, probably know how this mechanic works, as the normal mode skip is a lot easier to go for. The hard mode one is definitely more difficult, but it is possible with a rotation. And so we're just going to go over what I was doing. So here I was just essentially building up adrenaline originally and building up some Lang stacks. But if I skip forward here, we'll just go ahead and check. I went ahead and got up to 8 and assumed that when I went ahead and Lang spec'd in the Zerk, I would just get the additional 2, and these will stay on you for I believe 2 minutes, which is very handy. And this kind of started out just like a regular farming kill. The rotation isn't too dissimilar, although if you've done the hybrid farming method here, you do Wen Spore to get a free incendiary when you escape, but here you're saving your death spore for a natty later on. That's kind of the main difference. I'll bring these up on screen real quick, but as you can see here in the farming rotation, you Wen Spore right here in order to get a free incendiary shot in order to continue your DS. But on the farming rotation, we don't do any of that because we don't need to worry about finishing a full DS and getting as much damage on Vorkath as possible, because the only thing we need him to do is to get to that second HP marker. Anything past that is not going to help at all for the skip. Now on this rotation, you'll see up at the top it assumes 10 Lang stacks, which I went in with 8 and it seemed to work just fine. If you get 10 and want to farm out to 10 just for the security, like knowing in the back of your mind that you don't have to worry about it, that's fine, do that. But the thing that doesn't matter anymore, and I believe this shows that it's a slightly older rotation, is the fact that it wants you to get Wen stacks. I didn't worry about Wen arrows at all because Wen arrows were nerfed on the combat achievement release, and fully built up Wen arrows now do the same exact damage as Dragonbane arrows. So for this whole rotation, I just went ahead and kept the Dragonbane equipped, and it made life really simple. And that's also what I do in my farming rotation. By the way, the farming rotation I got from Glotz. I've used a couple of his rotations in the past on a few guides, and I'm going to be making a video in the near future on my Vorkath farming method. It differs slightly than his, and they get slightly slower kill times, but it's just what I've done and what I like. But I digress on that. This video is definitely not about the farming method. The other difference here on this skip rotation that I didn't do was using Sonic Wave or G-Sonic. I was just going for a corrupt shot on range, but we'll go ahead and just get through the kill a little bit. So I go in here, I stall with Lord of Bones, and then what I do once the fight starts is I dive over to Vorkath and I hit target cycle, smoke cloud, equip my Bolg, and corrupt shot all in one tick in that order. And then after that goes through, I hit my Death Swift And I believe you're supposed to save your APOT for the Zircon Zamorgil, but I was having some consistency problems, so sometimes I would APOT. There I did the rot correctly and I didn't APOT. Actually, now that I look at the rot, I was supposed to APOT with DS, but I was saving it for Zerk to help with the Zerk RNG. So if you're actually going to try this rotation, play around and see which one works out for you, and we're just going to continue on. So hit the DS, Smoke Cloud with a Gricko, and then this is just standard farming rotation where you use a physical SGB. Now, the reason we use a physical SGB here is so we can take advantage of Salve Amulet. The added damage from Salve Amulet being on a Dragon's Task, so you have the Slayer Helm buff. You can also use a Cluster Undead instead of a Cluster Dragon, or if you have a Blue Dragon Task, that will also work on Vorkath. Genocidal buff works on Vorkath. There's a long laundry list. The Undead Slayer Sigil works on Vorkath, and honestly, you're gonna want every single one of these buffs. I was trying to figure out this rotation and I wasn't quite getting to phase 2. I probably should have mentioned this a little bit earlier, but what was happening is I didn't have genocidal damage built up quite enough, and I wasn't getting the phasing where I needed it to be to allow my Zerk to line up nicely with Vorkath's flight. And so I went into the wilderness and smacked around some green dragons until I had at least 3%. If you want to go all the way and farm up to 5%, you can go ahead and do that, because you're never technically killing Vorkath when you go for these skips, so you'll always have the Slayer task. And if for some reason this becomes a viable farming method, you'll just have infinite task forever, but I digress. But anyways, instead of using an SGB and an EOF like you normally would, you use the physical one because you can get the salve buff. There is no way, as far as I'm aware, to tech swap or do any sort of switching between salve and EOF in the same tick in order to gain benefit from both the EOF spec and the salve amulet. I don't think there's any way to zero tick it or anything like that, so that's why everyone just does physical SGB. But anyways, after SGB, I go ahead and use, oh, I'm right clicking as if this is my actual screen. Oh my goodness. Anyways, I use my sigil one tick before I press rapid fire, let the rapid fire fully channel out, and then it is a bulk spec, a snapshot, a dark bow spec, into a Gricko. Now, we were just talking about how the benefit of SGB or physical SGB is with salve. If we tried this with Darkbow is like, what, a T65 weapon, T70 weapon? It absolutely would not be worthwhile to swap over to a Darkbow considering the tier difference. So we go ahead and use it inside of the EOF anyways. And then what did I do here? I was doing something different. Oh, I was rezzing. Okay. Res is to help keep your HP high and negate the necromancy damage that you're getting hit with. And what it allows you to do is when you use res here is you can target Zamorgil and hit Smoke Cloud. Now let's see, I remember struggling with the timing here. Let's see if I can remember what I did. Okay, now I remember what I did. So here I hit the res and I was immediately targeting Zamorgil, but then I was waiting a game tick and I would hit Smoke Cloud, click Vorkath, and my next ability, which was Tendies, and it was seeming to go off every single time on Vorkath. As you saw, the double 30Ks, if I just back up a little bit, that was a little too much. Yeah, you can see right there I have the double 30Ks, so getting that timing down can be a little bit tricky. I like to add spaces in just to make things simple rather than trying to do it all at once and be flashy with it. And also something I like to do is I'll bring the rotation up here again, and I will leave these both linked in the description below. But what I like to do here is instead of doing escape plus stall the incendiary and dive all in the same game tick or in the same couple of ticks, what I like to do here is I escape with the piercing shot. And then if you look here, I escaped with the piercing shot. There it is, the 7,000, the 4,500. That's the piercing shot hit, and I've already escaped. And then I just stall incendiary and run to the side so it stalls. You can also click under yourself, and then I dive back in separately, and then I hit Smoke Cloud with Gricko, I think. Yeah, I release with Gricko, or no, I don't actually. I should probably pay attention to what abilities I'm actually. It's kind of hard with this movie player to truly see what I'm doing, but it's release with a piercing shot into a Gricko to help balance out the stacks, so that way the incendiary shot gets a double hit, and then it is a rapid fire, a snap into a dark bow, piercing shot, Gricko, and a piercing shot. Now, I did this a little while ago, and I'll leave the stream linked below. I believe I explained what I was doing somewhere in there, but essentially, I think it was phasing problems. And what I would do is, if I didn't quite get it phased when I wanted to, I would add an additional ability somewhere and then just remove that initial piercing shot with the death spore arrows equipped. And it made the Natty Instinct Zerk line up nicely in case I was late or something like that. If you want to go find the explanation in the stream, feel free, but I think there was something there where I was doing something slightly different if I wasn't getting damage, because there is quite a bit of variance with this rotation. This is not just like a copy paste rotation, you get the free skip. There is a bit of nuance to it. There's a bit of figuring with it, and you kind of just gotta play with it and find out what works for you inside of this rotation. Maybe make a couple changes in order for you to get the skip. Although I was pretty on point with the rotation, so that's actually kind of surprising. I'm actually kind of surprising myself here with that. Now, I've paused it right here because if I zoom here, my Natty just got pressed, and that's because I had the death spore stacks built up and Natty consumed them, so I could keep all of my adrenaline. So I hit Natty, and then I swapped over to my melee's setup and hit Berserk. And since Natural Instinct is a defensive and no auto attacks are being fired out anyways, that gives you enough time to then just Zerk and immediately barge in instead of also having to hit something like Anticipate or anything like that. And then what you do is you just hit your Zerk and then barge Zamorgiel, hit the D-Sim spec, Greco for adrenaline, stall the assault bleed, because as you notice, the reason I run out for the stall here and then release as I come back in. Now, you can stall and release by clicking under yourself outside of combat distance and then releasing with smoke cloud, but I've been meleeing for so long, I'm pretty decent about knowing what distances to run out and run back in and release abilities with to get them to line up how I want to. If you're not quite that comfortable with melee, feel free to do something where you're clicking under yourself and then walking back in and then releasing with smoke cloud. But the reason you do that, if I just back it up here a skosh, is the shield is still active and you want all of the hits, or as many hits as possible, with an assault to hit when he's not shielded, because Vork is still in the process of flying away and hasn't technically left yet. You can still see there's some damage on Vorkath as the flight is gone, but technically the hitbox is still there. That way, when you come in with the assault bleed, the shield is gone and everything is counting as full damage values. And then after that, you're releasing the assault with a Lang spec. I talked about this in the Ambi Grandmaster. Once you've played with melee and you're going in and out of attack range, you kind of learn the nuance of hit and run with melee, knowing when things are going to actually release, when they're not going to. It's not 100% intuitive, but once you build up the knowledge of stalling and releasing by just running out and in, it makes life a lot easier. And we go ahead and pop our Lang spec here. I don't think I got any additional Lang stacks. Yeah, I was still on 8 at this point, but this one got the skip, so it worked. And then after that, you just follow the rotation per usual. It's a meteor strike into a chaos roar, spam a few D claws, and then hit a, I went for a 4th claw there and then hit G Fury overpower. And then I did another Lang spec and claw spammed, and then he went back up into his shield here and I just finished off the kill, because he is still damageable, or as I probably should say, you can still damage him when he has a shield. It's just significantly reduced damage. And so I just gave him a couple hits of I believe it was just a couple basics I used there to finish up the kill. And then the timer pops up and there it is, achievement done. Oh wait, that's actually a different one. That's killing him. Oh wait, I forgot I did these two together. Defeat Zamorgiel in hard mode without killing Vorkath. And then the other one should pop up here in a second. There it is, sub 145, and the time I ended up with is a 128.2. You can see a kill time anywhere from like 115, or I think even someone has like a 111 or a 110, all the way up to whatever time you see, like a 145. or a 144 you would technically need for the achievement. But once you get used to the rotation, once you get used to how Vorkath works, if you've never done Vorkath before, this boss can be extremely frustrating to learn. There is a lot of hidden chip damage with not many telegraphs, and this is definitely one of those bosses that you just kind of have to beat your head against the wall until you actually understand what's going on. I won't get into a complete rant about my overall thoughts on Vorkath as a boss, but suffice to say, I find it very cathartic to absolutely destroy this boss with a hybrid farming setup and skip all of the pretty BS mechanics that exist here. But that's for a different video, and the farming method is a completely different animal that will be coming out soon. Again, I will leave the rotations linked in the description below. Hopefully this format is helpful for you, where I'm going over a replay and I'm able to talk through a little bit more rather than trying to do it in the heat of the moment and repeat one of these godforsaken kills. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna leave you with the unfiltered, uninterrupted kill. I hope you enjoy.